This is the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. This is Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And once again, this is section 2 of a 5 to possibly 7-part series. And why is it a 5 to 7-part series? Because it is a warning to all of you right now about possibly the biggest crash in world history that's coming. So it's 7 parts because it's a vast subject. And trust me, it'll affect everybody. And of course, I'm shamelessly promoting my new book. It's called Who Stole My Pension? But one of the reasons the Rich Dad Company was formed and created was because my dad lost his pension, way back in the 70s. And I didn't call him poor dad until after he lost his pension. He was poor. And the guy was a school teacher, a PhD, the head of the school education system. But when he lost his job and his paycheck and his pension, he was hopeless. He had no idea where to go. And my poor dad kept saying to me, I just come back from Vietnam, and my poor dad said, go back to school, get your master's, get your PhD, and climb the government ladder. And I went, I don't think I'll do that, because here's my old man. He's flat broke. He had no survival skills in the real world. On top of that, he was the head of the teachers' pension, the teachers' unions. And those are the guys that teach our kids. So this crisis has been building for years and years and years, and I've just been watching it coming. And one of the reasons, I'm so adamant about financial education is if you believe that garbage of go to school, get a job, and retire forever on a 401k or a government pension, you might be sadly disappointed. And it's coming. It's already hit in Paris. That's why they're rioting in Paris and Chile. They're rioting in Santiago, and they're just rioting everywhere because they can't afford to pay the pensions. Look what's happening in Venezuela, one of the richest countries. It is the richest country in oil in the world. They're broke. Oh, yes, but no, my 401k is safe. I have a government pension. I'm a school teacher. It'll be there. So the book is called Who Stole My Pension? And once again, this is part 2 of a 5 to 7-part series. And we're going to have different experts coming to talk to us and explain from their point of view why Who Stole My Pension is possibly the most important book you can read between 2020 and 2030, because this is when the whole house of cards comes crashing down. Any comments, Kim?
Well, this is a great series, and our two guests, of course, Ted Siedle and Andy Tanner, who we'll introduce in just a second, huge experts in this. But I loved in the first episode, Ted talked about people who have a pension, and you go, well, you may not have a pension. Oh, yes, they promised. They promised, and it's in writing. It's in writing, and they promised, so it will be there. I mean, they just don't question. They just so blindly want to believe, and it's just not going to happen. So this is a really, really important series, And not even if you don't have a pension, still you, the taxpayer, is the one that's going to end up on the hook paying for these pensions that the governments can't afford.
So this is about the pension time bombs are about to explode, episode 2. My co-author in this is a brilliant guy, Ted Siedle. He's a former SEC attorney, and he's seen it from the inside. And now he is America's leading whistleblower on pensions. The guys who run the pensions, like the boards, but also Wall Street, and also the corruption inside all pensions, because pensions are like a big piece of meat sitting on the ground. The trouble is it's fake meat. It's like a Whopper, fake meat burger. And it's not good for you, But anyway, our second guest is a dear friend for years and years and years. He's a Rich Dad advisor. He's my personal expert when I need to know about paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, 401ks, IRAs, and all of the other garbage they pump out from Wall Street. Andy is my expert on that. He understands it. He loves it. He thinks it's a wonderful place to play in the paper asset world. And I highly recommend you get his 2 books. One is called 401 Chaos. It's how the 401k was designed to steal your money. And the second one is Stock Market Cash Flow. I mean, we're not saying get out of the stock market, but don't be stupid. Don't sit there and go, oh, I'm in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. That's garbage.
Yeah, that's what I love about, Andy, the stock market cash flow. You can actually get cash flow from the stock market.
Yeah, you
Most
can.
people don't. Most people don't know how to do that.
So we've introduced Ted before. Again, this is part 2 of a possibly 5 to 7 part series. We have so many experts who want to come on this show and tell you why you're screwed. That's all they want to say. So you say, well, I'm only 20 years old. Yeah, but I think most of you are planning to have a 401k, like idiots. But anyway, I wouldn't touch one. And then if you have mommy and daddy who are now in their 50s and their 401k is now in $1 million, remember a few years ago it was 401k went down to 201k. It got halved. And then you retire with nothing. So this is 2008, the crash of Lehman, because, I called that. You can watch it on CNN. Go to the website. I was on CNN with Wolf Blitzer calling the crash of Lehman 6 months in advance. 6 months. Actually, 7 months. It was September. And nobody listened. And if they had listened to me, they'd be rich today. But instead, they rode that pony down, So once again, our 2 guests today are Ted Siedle and Andy Tanner. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is going to be fun.
Yep.
Yeah, and welcome to the program again, Ted.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay. So let's start with Andy. The reason it's important to have both these guys on, okay, very important, is because there's 2 types of pensions. And this is throughout the world. I mean, well, no, I live in Colombia. It's different. Well, you don't have a pension in Colombia. But anyway, 2 types. One is called defined benefit. That's what my mommy and daddy had. They're called industrial age pensions. It's basically a paycheck for life. And Ted is an expert on that. The second type of pension happened for the baby boom generation, my generation, and today we call it a 401k, IRA, or SIP. And basically what happened in around 1974, I believe, ERISA came out, and ERISA stands for Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And anytime the government says you're secure, you're getting screwed. That's what's happening right there. So the 401k and all my classmates, about my age who are baby boomers now, pushing 50, 60, 70, they're all happy because our 401ks are fat. And if you're a child or a grandchild of a grandparent, get ready to welcome with open arms and they move in with you when they get slammed. So that's why we have this program. Okay, there's 2 types of pensions: defined benefit, which is Ted's expertise, and Andy Tanner's was defined contribution. This is true all over the world. So let's start with Andy, because what do you think about the 401k? Because you wrote the book 401 Chaos, right?
Well, I think it's a heist. So thanks for having me. No, you mentioned that it's very true for both the defined benefit and the defined contribution. Is the Census Bureau ran a study of where people's wealth is, the average guy. And it's really crazy because the first thing is they think their house is an asset.
Right.
Of course.
And so the bank wants your mortgage. But the second place in concentration of wealth is in people's retirement funds.
Right.
And so if you're Wall Street, whether it's, Kentucky and saying, well, where's the pension money at? Or whether it's in your defined contribution plan, where's that money at? They really are like vultures.
Yeah.
And the competition and the greed to get a hold of that money to make it their asset, meaning fees, is a really huge thing. And in both sides, there's promises made, and it's an interesting conversation. But to sum it up, it's a mess and it's not working.
Yeah. And I people say I'm a pessimist. Well, also I'm a realist. I don't think they can fix this one.
No.
I think this is bigger than 2008. The subprime is going to look like a boom time.
They're actually trying to fix it. They're making it worse, actually.
Yeah. And how can you bail out the banks and pay bankers bonuses and screw everybody else? I don't know how people can trust those SOBs. Any comments, Kim?
Well, I just have a question to Andy. So let's say I have a 401k and it says I've got $200,000 in it. What's the future look like?
Well, if you've got $200,000 in your 401k right now, you're doing a heck of a lot better than most people. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, some people are up to $1 million, stuff like this.
Yeah,
What's the average?
Right now, I'll give you some context first. Right now, there's about $7 trillion plus in 401k type defined contribution plans in America. Vanguard's got 1.4 of it. So that's a large sampling.
1/7 of it.
Yeah, 1.4 trillion is what Vanguard has. Well, their most recent report in 2019, of course, 2020 is not yet. They say, let's look at this demographic, Kim. The median, I mean the person in the middle, aged 55 to 65, has about $60,000. What that means is half of the people in those plans have less than 60,000. The people 65 and over have around 50,000. So if you have 200,000, congratulations, you're probably a rich executive. Where'd the money go, right?
Right.
Where'd the money go?
Well, let's say I'm at that 60,000.
So, well,
what's my future look like?
Well, let's do the math. How much do you want to live on a year? That's if you live on $5,000 a month, you got a year. So what that looks like for you is more work. I'm going to encourage everyone to read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad again to understand a financial statement. Because I'm going to tell you, if you're listening to this program in now and you don't know what a financial statement is, it's tough for you to enter this conversation.
Right.
But think of it this way. If you talk to Ted, I'll let him speak for himself, but a pension comes into the income column from your business. That's a function of your cash flow. Income comes in, expenses go out. But a defined contribution, that's a function of your balance sheet. You follow that? That's a very big difference.
Right.
That's a huge difference. So, Kim, you have an hourglass. Your risk now is if you have $60,000, you got to do the math. You just ran a 40-year marathon. You got to the end at age 65, and now you're like, oh, they're going to extend the finish line out for me a long, long time because you're not going to be able to stop working
if you have a job.
Yeah, if you have a job. And so that's the one thing that your future looks like is assuming that is maintained, that 60,000, you're going to start drawing on the asset column to pay your expenses rather than the income column to pay your expenses.
And that's what happens with people with a saver mentality.
For sure.
They eat away at the principal.
It's an hourglass, right? Now, that's one thing. The other thing that's in your future is something called systemic risk. That's a fancy term, but what it means is if your stock market has a collapse like 2000 or 2008, either of those, or worse, then that 60 goes to 30. And then you get to pay your taxes. And if you're still working, you're not in that low tax bracket like you'd planned for. So then the government's going to pay tax. And here's the nutty thing. They want these presidential candidates to show their taxes. Like Romney wouldn't show his and Trump doesn't want to show his because they're in a different tax deal. Well, think about this. They get tax breaks because they're investors and they take risk.
Oh, they're also senators.
For sure.
They got so many breaks,
they take
guaranteed retirement.
So they have less taxes because they take risk. Well, 401k money is taxed as ordinary income. So you're taking investor risk, but you're not getting investor tax benefit.
Right.
So, to answer your question, there's a lot of things in your future, Kim, but it's a mess.
Would you have a 401k? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Ted, again, you and I have learned so much hanging out with you. You and I went to New York City to pump, who stole my pension. I learned more about investing hanging out with you as you were talking to the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and I think it was Barron's, those reporters, and they know it's coming. And you talk at a different level of conversation than me, and I'm pretty street level. But these guys know it's coming, but the public doesn't know. So would you give us a quick background in case people haven't really listened to these programs or read the book? How did you come to be the largest whistleblower in the United States on pensions?
Well, I early on focused on forensic investigations of pensions and the money management industry. So I've done that for 35 years. So basically, forensic investigation is like of money management is like CSI Miami, the television show. You go into a room. In the show, the investigators go into a room. There's a dead body there, and the question is: Is the body did the person die because of natural causes or because of foul play? In my work, I go into pensions and investments that are dead or dying, and I investigate was
The corpse.
has the pension failed because of natural of market forces, unforeseen market forces, stock market fluctuations, or because of foul play. And in most cases, the majority of cases, the overwhelming majority of cases, it's because of foul play.
I was going to say, Ted, I think you've got job security for as long as you want to do this.
Well, the good news is I'm the only one who does this type of work.
Well, you got to be smart. That's why you're secure. But you also work with the SEC. You also work from the SEC side, so you saw it from the inside and the outside, right?
That's right. I started out straight out of law school as a regulator with the SEC for 3 years, regulating the investment industry, and then moved out in search of greener pastures to work in the private sector, where I was.
Okay, Ted, hold on one second, because we have to go to a break right now. So anyway, we're going to talk more about how you investigate corpses that are of dead pensions. So it's a very important show. Again, we're promoting the book, Who Stole My Pension? This is part 2 of a 5 to 7 part series, depending how many people you want to listen to on how your pensions are becoming corpses. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news about and bad news about money. You can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android and YouTube. And then please leave a review after you listen to the program, because we want to know what you think. Is this good, bad, or you don't care? Anyway, all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com, because we are an education company, financial education. We don't sell advice or investments. And the reason we archive them is so you can listen to this program again, because repetition is how we learn best. You learn to be a good golfer, not hitting the golf ball once. You got to hit a couple of million times to become like Tiger Woods level. But also you have friends, family, and business associates who are probably clueless in Chicago right now, thinking their 401k is safe or their police pension is safe. And that's the kind of person you want to talk to right now. Or if you're a business owner, if I'm correct that this is the biggest crash in world history coming, this is global, a global crash, because the baby boomers are all over the world. And in the next 10 years, again, 2020 to 2030, approximately 2 billion baby boomers will need a pension. And there's nothing there. So the question is, what are you going to do? So you could be 22 years old, so I don't have to worry about this. Well, if you don't want mommy, daddy, and grandma moving in with you, you better pay attention, figure out what you're going to do now before the crash comes. So again, our 2 guests are Ted Siedle. He's a former SEC attorney, and he's a leading whistleblower on pensions. And Andy Tanner, he's a Rich Dad advisor. He's our expert on paper assets. And go back to Ted.
Yes. So Ted,
Dead meat.
So Ted, can you continue on with your corpse analogy of the pensions?
I really like it.
I'd love to, and I'll bring you all to Chapter 6 in Who Stole My Pension, which is called Every Dead Pension Deserves an Autopsy.
Very nice. Very nice.
Well, I bet you have to wear a mask, and that probably smells really bad when you get in there.
Well, there have been over 5,000 corporate pensions that have failed and been taken over by the PBGC, including United Airlines, U.S. Air Pilots, some of the largest corporations in the world.
And Detroit.
I met with the PBGC 14 years ago, and I said, have you ever investigated what causes pensions to fail?
One second.
They said no, that never had done that in history.
1 second, Ted. PBGC stands for Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation.
It's kind of like the FDIC of
it's
pensions,
an insurance.
yeah?
It's a government insurance company.
That's also broke.
The Studebaker company is going out of business, and they went to President Kennedy and they said, "Hey, we're going to lose our pension. what can you do for us? He said, ask not what your country can do for you. But eventually in President Ford, that was part of ERISA that you mentioned, was the PBGC. But Ted,
to save pensions.
But Ted, let me ask you this: how are they doing in their balance sheet? I mean,
PBGC.
it's not. Well, I've read in the Government Accountability Office has them going 99% chance they're insolvent by 2026. The PBGC, isn't that right, Ted? They're going out of business. Yeah, they're gone.
They claim that they're not taxpayer funded, that they're paid for by premiums they charge corporations for the insurance, if you will. But they're tens of billions of dollars in deficit. So ultimately, they are taxpayer funded. Because the taxpayers will have to pay the shortfall.
But this is crazy, though, because you've got a promise from your company to pay you, and then they break it, or your government. Then you got a promise for the insurance company that backs them up, and they can't keep their promises either. I mean, that's like promise after promise, just getting kicked, right in the face.
Absolutely. And when the PBGC takes over a pension, like the U.S. Air Pilots Union, the pilots had their pensions slashed by over 50%. So even the so-called government insurance only gives you perhaps half of what you were promised by your employer.
In fact,
so it's a terrible backstop, if you will.
Well, you look at the Government Accountability Office right now. They're saying the max that they're going to pay someone, in the future is going to be 12, and most people are going to get less than $2,000 because they're at a year, Robert.
What?
A
$2,000 a year? A
year, not a month. A year. And they're out of business by 2026. 6 years they got left. 99% chance the PBGC is insolvent by 2026, according to the Government Accountability Office most recent data.
So Ted, I have the reason this is so important, this book for you and I, is when I came back from Vietnam, I was a pilot, and my poor dad said to me, he says, why don't you go fly for the airlines then? Because you already have a good profession. And my double loser friends, one went to fly for Pan Am, and they pulled the rug out of him, so he jumped into United Airlines. And Ted, what happened to United Airlines pension?
United Airlines was the largest. It went bankrupt. The government took it over, and it was at the time, in I believe 2006, the largest pension failure in history. And so their bet your pal would have had his pension benefits cut in half.
Well, he's driving a truck today, not a plane. He's just too old.
But this is, the few remaining corporate pensions out there that still exist. If you have one, you can be confident that your employer is thinking of a way, is working with experts on coming up with a way to screw you out of it, either to cut the benefits or to dump the pension on the government.
Guess what they replace them with? Guess what they replace them with?
And the state and local government pensions in the United States, which hold almost $4 trillion in assets and provide retirement benefits for roughly 21 million current and former state and local employees, over half of them have cut their benefits since 2008. So anybody who has a pension, whether it's corporate or public, should absolutely count on somebody is going to try to take it from you, at least some of it, if not all of it. So
if I'm counting on my pension today, what do I do? What do I do?
Well, we've given readers in Who Stole My Pension, we've given readers an action plan that they can follow, and in terms of starting to look at their pension. We talk about the major scams that for example, one of the chapters is called "All Pensions Lie About Their Investment Performance." And in my 35 years of investigating pensions and reviewing pension financial statements, I've never seen a pension admit that its investment performance sucks. They all claim to be above average, and that just can't be.
And that above average in your world, 7.5% ROI return on annual, and that's not true. They're lying to the people. So we're again, this is Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, and we're talking about the biggest crash that's already upon us right now, and it's going to get worse because you can't turn back time. I'm getting older. The baby boomers are getting older, and they're pretty soon going to need to start sucking out that cash for their pensions. And baby boomers stop saving. When you retire, you stop saving. You start sucking that cash out. You don't have any money to put back in. So again, there's two types of pensions: defined benefit, which Ted Siedle is the expert on, and the second is the 401k or defined contribution, which started around 1974, when corporations as well employees, or the paycheck for life, which is a defined benefit pension, which police, firefighters, and teachers have. It's just too expensive for a company. So they created this thing called ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which then morphed into the 401k, IRA, SEPs, and those things, and Kiyos. So Andy Tanner is our guest today because he is the expert on the DC plan. So Andy, if I had, let's say, $500,000 in my 401k, this is 2020, February 2020, would you feel secure?
No.
And why did you write the book 401 Chaos?
Because people don't know the history.
What don't they know?
ERISA in 1978 created enmity between labor and ownership. The PBGC regulations, they're saying they're trying to hold these pensions accountable. Well, in 1978, Jimmy Carter was failing as a president. Iran problems and freaking energy bill. He had one last bill called a tax bill he wanted, which was really a stimulus package. And there was a congressman named Barbara Conable from New York, and he had his constituents Kodak and Xerox. And they said, hey, our rich executives want to take some cash. If you get a $100,000 bonus at Christmas, back then, 75% tax back then. So they go, we got to park this money. So during this legislation, they hired a young 20-something lawyer named Richard Stanger, who
you've interviewed him, right?
I have.
Yeah.
And he says, we're going to write this legislation and let these companies do this. Now, this made me fell out of my chair when I interviewed him. I fell out of my freaking chair when he said this. If you're going to mess around with the tax code, the Treasury wants to know how much money they're going to lose in tax return every year, right? Now, keep in mind, this is $7 trillion we're at now,
so
right?
So 401k is a tax code number.
It's a tax code number. It was paragraph B or paragraph K. It was 800 words long. That's it.
Oh, geez.
800. That was it. It was tiny. The Congressional Budget Office and the Treasury studied it, and they said the impact on tax will be less than $1 million a year. I mean, you realize what they're saying? They didn't think this was going to go anywhere. They thought this was going to be a little thing that was hidden. Well, 2 years later, I've also interviewed Ted Benna, and he's a retirement consultant, and he says, hey, we could use this to fund pensions, but we got to get some bait and dangle it in front of a bank teller so they'll buy in too. And so that's when the match came out, and the rest is freaking...
The employer puts in 50%.
Match. It's bait to get you to go in there, and now the companies can wash their hands of you if you retire, and now you're left with whatever you have in that balance sheet. It really isn't yours. So I get very passionate about this. I get a little bit angry, frankly, about it, because there was never a think tank, there was never a brain trust of smart men and women who said, let's get together and find out a way for people retirement. This was never intended to be the shoulder, the burden of retirement. It's never supposed to be this way. And yet now when United Airlines does the biggest bankruptcy in history, the reason they do it is their liability column is full of pensions they can't pay. So what do? They wash their hands of those promises, declare bankruptcy, start over, and they roll those pilots into a freaking 401k. And none of these people know how to invest.
And the military is doing that too,
It's happening on...
Well, the people running the funds don't know how to invest.
Look, it's happening at 3 levels. And this is a crisis, and you should have a crisis attitude about it. That's what John Bogle said. He says, look, you have it on the corporate level. Hostess did this. Yeah. Hostess did it because the Twinkie's dying now, right? When you have a Twinkie, you're in trouble. Number 2, it's municipalities are doing it. Started with Stockton, California, then San Bernardino. Detroit is a big one.
Dallas.
Then you got states like CalPERS in Kentucky. And then you've got the biggest one, which is where we become medical dependents and pensioners of the United States, Medicare, Social Security. And that is the one that is causing our $1 trillion deficit right now. And that's why the Fed has to print money to prop this stuff up. That's why I think it's a bubble.
So once again, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, our two guests today. And we're shamelessly touting our new book. It's called Who Stole My Pension? We have two guests because there's two types of pension. This is worldwide. Defined benefit, which is Ted Siedle, and this is what teachers, firefighters, and police officers have, and labor unions, a lot of them. And defined contribution, which I call the baby boomer pension. It's defined contribution. You only get what's in there when you retire. And it's Wall Street just sucking this thing dry on both sides, because that's how they get rich. It's not your asset, it's their asset. Your pension is their asset. Your 401k is their asset. Your defined Your government pension is their asset. It's not your asset. And again, that's why the Rich Dad Company was formed, because my dad and Ted's dads lost their pensions years ago. And so we're kind of hot on this subject. Andy's hot on this subject. So when we come back, we generally go over at this point to a conversation between Kim and myself. But given that we have two experts on this field, defined contribution, which is Andy Tanner, and defined benefit, which is Ted Siedle, I'd like to roll for another 15 minutes, okay? So we'll be right back, and stay tuned again for what Andy and Ted and Kim and myself have to listen to. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Once again, listen to the Rich Dad program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, or YouTube. And please leave us a comment whenever you listen. Also, our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because we're a financial education company. We make no recommendations on what to do, what to pick, or sell our services, or we don't make commissions on that. We sell education, basically. And then we want you to listen to this again, because repetition is how you learn best. You listen to this program one more time, you might get the message. You're being screwed. You have a 401k or you're working for the government, you're being screwed. And I'm expecting, and many people else are expecting, the biggest crash to make 2008 look like nothing, because this is the biggest crash worldwide, because worldwide there are defined benefit, defined contribution pension plans, and there's, I don't know how many billion, whether 220 billion people, 2 billion retirees coming up all over the world, 2 billion. And they don't have any money. So who's going to pay the bill? So our guest, again, any comments on that, Kim?
Well, I just want to say that the purpose of our show and this series and the Rich Dad Radio Show is really to be kind of a wake-up call for people, to give you information, to give you different points of view, and not to just blindly, close your eyes or not look at your 401k statement or not look at your financial statements, but to really say, hey, this might be happening and this probably is going to happen, so wake up and do something about it.
So once again, we'll go back to why the Rich Dad program was created. Is because, again, my dad ran for a lieutenant governor against his boss, the governor, and he lost his job and his pension and his paycheck and all this, and that's why he became a poor dad. He was a highly educated academic. And Ted, tell us what happened to your dad that kind of woke you up about this idea of pensions.
Well, my dad was involved in the intelligence community, and so I grew up in East Africa with him, where he did work with the CIA, and he disappeared when I was 17 years old and couldn't be found. So I came back to the United States in 1971, just turned 17, and so I was essentially orphaned at that time. His body couldn't be found, so he could not be presumed, he could not be declared dead, so his estate couldn't be probated, Social Security wouldn't pay, and his life insurance wouldn't pay. And so that was a real wake-up call for me that, just how bad things can get. And within a year, an investigation was conducted in Uganda, East Africa, and it was concluded that the brutal dictator of Uganda, Idi Amin, had murdered him and tortured and murdered him. And so the government offered to pay my family a settlement without admitting guilt. And so then within a year or so, I was back on my feet financially, not emotionally. But so that was a real rude awakening at that age.
And is part of your concern? There's a lot of baby boomers, let's say, for lack to say, and the families of baby boomers. They might face a similar fate that you and I faced.
Yeah, I think it, this is a big concern. And when we were talking earlier about 401ks and converting to 401ks, I tell the story in our book, Robert, about how in 2011 I stood with over 200 City of Atlanta, Georgia police officers in the finance committee meeting room of the city council, because the mayor was going to freeze the pension and force them into a 401k plan. And the mayor said, this is as good as your pension. And I explained to the city council, I was quoted as saying, 401ks cannot and will not provide meaningful retirement security for the overwhelming number of American workers, and certainly not the public employees of the city of Atlanta. So if you vote to force your city employees into a 401k type pension, at least be honest about it and admit from the get-go that this is no retirement plan.
Any comments on that?
That mayor, he's speaking out of ignorance, because to equate a DC with a pension is not to understand a basic financial statement. They are so different. And the sad thing, Ted, that makes my heart just sink on this is that these guys do not have the financial education to manage their money. They went to school to get a job. Their expertise is in flying planes or driving trucks or doing whatever they do. And to force these people in the swipe of a legislative pen to become investors and understand risk and markets and fees is unconscionable. It's incredible.
Well, and that the mayor and the city council knew damn well that they were doing this to save money. There was no way that it was going to be an enhanced benefit or even an equal benefit. It was going to be a less costly benefit for the city, and that's why they did it. And one other comment I just want to make is when we talk about 401ks, and we were talking about them earlier, just remember, half of Americans have no 401k, have no retirement plan at all. So when you hear the median is 60,000 or whatever, that's the median. That's half have zero, and 60,000 is the median for the other half.
That's unbelievable.
So it's much worse.
It's incredible. One thing educationally people might think of is when you think of a liability column, there's two ways to think about that. There's borrowed money and promised money, and it's different. Money that you borrow, well, that's a debt you have to repay, but money that's promised was never borrowed yet. So you'd hope there'd be an asset there to deliver on those promises. And what the reason these mayors and these people get going on this is they say, we've promised so much money that we don't have, and that we did have, Wall Street gobbled up in fees, because that's the piece of meat, that they say, look, we can't keep these promises. And so they transfer the risk, the responsibility, everything onto the worker, onto that person who knows nothing about, half the people listening to this don't even know what I'm talking about right now.
I know.
They don't even know what a balance sheet is.
No. I have made so many people, I don't have to have a 401k, or my father's a police officer.
And I think Ted said it really well when he said, just know that if you have a corporate pension or a government pension, they are all working right now to figure out how to pay less and screw you more. They're all trying to figure it out. How do we pay less? How do we get rid of this obligation?
So
They're all doing it.
One of the most important things about Who Stole My Pension is solutions. What can you do? And once again, I'm shamelessly promote the Rich Dad Company. This company was created because we saw this coming. And, I called the crash of Lehman Brothers about 6-7 months before it happened. And you're now being warned. It hasn't crashed yet. This is February 2020. But But if you're just sitting there while sucking your thumb saying, oh, I don't have to worry, I have a government pension, my father's a police officer, or I have a 401k with $1 million in it, the question is, what happens if you're wrong? So, Andy, what solutions do you have for people with 401ks and IRAs or annuities?
I'll offer two ideas. Number one, understand the difference between a culture of advice and a culture of education. If you're always asking people, what should I do, what should I do, what should I do, that's advice. You'll always be beholden to promises from other people, and you will pay for those. If you create a culture of education, you'll study. So that leads to my second point. What would I study? I would look at it through this context. There's a dollar bill. Who wants it? The government wants it, so they're going to try to get their portion of it from you. They're going to want your money through taxes. Two is your business, right? Your employer. They don't want to give you the dollar in the first place, so they're going to give you as little of that dollar as they can. Third is Wall Street. Wall Street definitely wants that dollar in their stewardship for as long as they can so they can pull fees out of it. So if you understand all the sides of the coin, what does the government want? What does your employer want? What does Wall Street want? Then that leaves you. And you have to fight for that dollar. You have to fight for it and learn how to invest it. And that's what I would do. Learn who the players are, what their motives are. It boils down to greed. The company wants to keep as much as they can and give less to you. That's just how it goes. Wall Street wants as much of that dollar as they can squeeze out with fees. And then you're left there trying to defend your dollar, trying to make it grow.
Fantastic. So, Ted, if you have people who have defined benefits like firefighters, police officers, teachers, and many labor unions, what advice do you have for them with a defined benefit plan?
Well, one of the things we really wanted to do in this book, Who Stole My Pension, Robert, was to give people an action plan. One of the things I say is, now is the time to take immediate action to stop the looting and protect pensions by ensuring that promises made are in fact kept. Doing nothing, sitting back, confident that your pension check is in the mail is not an option. That's a risk that workers can't afford to take. And so what we talk about in the book is that mismanagement of pension investments is the cause of pension failures, and that we point out that the boards watching over these pensions almost universally lack investment experience. Pensions are increasingly being less transparent, not more transparent, because Wall Street is pushing them to be less transparent. They're gambling more than ever. They're lying about the investment fees they pay, and they're not adequately protected under state or federal law. And finally, many pensions, are not even audited fully by an accounting firm. So these are the points that we really hammer home that pensioners need to be aware of and to take action and potentially have a crowd-funded forensic investigation of their retirement plan. So this
is why, please listen to this. Who Stole My Pension is a very important book, because we talk about on the back cover is what's America's number one export? Toxic assets. Like for the subprime crash of 2008, it was CLOs, CDOs, MBSs, and all those other derivatives. So this crash coming up right now, is a result of 2008. And Andy's, it's the biggest stock market boom in history. But how has pension performance been, Andy?
It's in the frickin' trash can.
So all this, so the stock market is going up, but the state government pensions, there's no gain inside the pension. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. We have never seen a stock market. You would think that, in the beginning of 2008, the smartest thing you ever could have done is put your money in the stock market, which guys like Warren Buffett did, and they're richer than ever. They're richer than ever. But I'll tell you what, these pensions, you mentioned these fees and how they lie, Ted. This gets me going. You look at that cockeyed Kentucky fund. Do you know how they hide the fees? They say, well, it's proprietary. We're so good at this that we can't disclose our fee structure. That's part of our proprietary system. Their benchmark for that thing was like 7.5% to 8% was what they promised. They hit maybe 4% twice in 20 years. In 20 years.
And what has the stock market done in 20 years?
Oh, it's basically doubled.
Yeah, 14,000 Dow in 2008, 28,000 Dow in 2020.
I mentioned for you, Warren Buffett's got 20% of his stock money in Apple, and it doubled last year. But these pension guys, you got $60,000 in your Vanguard defined contribution plan. It's unbelievable. I tell you, I'd love to talk to Ted about the forensic part of those fees, because the law of compounding costs is something I would study if I had either a pension or a 401k. I would study how those fees and where they go and what happens with them.
So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Robert. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, that's what the forensic investigations I've undertaken have shown, is that in every case, the pension didn't fail because not enough money went into it or too much money was paid out. It was the underperformance of the investments compounded over time caused the pension to lose almost half its value. And that's why your average state and local pension in America today is 70% funded. The other 30% went to Wall Street.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Final words, Kim.
Well, I would just say this. It's like, again, we're just giving a warning here. We're giving a warning. It's like if somebody said, next Friday, your house is going to burn down. What are you going to do? You're going to get insurance. You're going to take safety precautions. You're going to do something. And so basically what we're saying here is this is a warning, and you can prepare for it now. What are you going to do?
And the worst thing I hear young people say, especially the millennials, I don't have to worry, I'm still young.
Yeah.
I said, this is what I see, okay? We have never been here before, ever in the world. Never before has the world been on one economic system. You know, before, like if France crashed, nobody cared because it was France, not the U.S. This time, it's a global crash, and you have a chance to get out. You have a chance to get out before the rioting starts. And it's going to start. And I wish you could say, well, it's not going to happen. But that's like saying baby boomers aren't going to get any older. You can't help but get older. This is guaranteed to happen. So you're sitting there going, well, I don't have to worry. I wish I wasn't going to get older, but I can't help that. Right, Ted?
and whether you have a pension or not, you are a pension stakeholder. State and local, you're a pension stakeholder if you're a taxpayer, because you are contributing to these pensions. So it's not only the workers in them that have to worry about it, it's the millennials or anyone else who's paying state and local taxes, because they are paying into these pensions.
Yeah. We're very, very close. Like as we talk today, 2020, February, in France, they're rioting, but Americans don't even know that. They're rioting because of pensions. So, ladies and gentlemen, the reason we created the Rich Dad Company 20-something years ago was we saw this coming. So there's something you can do, and I trust you will do it rather than hope and pray we're wrong.
I would just say this topic is so much bigger than what we can cover in a program. I think it's important to have a 5 to 7 part series.
Correct.
I'm not going to plead with anybody. You have to make your own choices. Right. And, we are not advocates for advice. We advocate for education. And that's always the same drum that I beat is I've never met anyone that became tremendously wealthy without understanding money. And the idea that you can be an investor without education, it's like a doctor saying, well, I can do surgery and skip in med school. And so I just would humbly, and sincerely, with the most sincere language I can summon, just get educated on this topic so you're not caught in ignorance.
So once again, we archive this program so you can listen to this program again at richdadradio.com. But more importantly, sit down with friends, family, business associates, listen to this program and discuss it. Some will say we're full of it, as they always do. They want to deny it. But ladies and gentlemen, just remember, this one will be the biggest ever. And if you want to be in denial about it, that's up to you. So I thank Ted, and I thank Andy Tanner, and I thank Kim for being part of the Rich Dad Radio Show. Remember, this is number 2 of a 5 to 7 part series. It's that big and it's that important. Thank you for listening.